Jason, I saw a report yesterday that China has 200 times the shipbuilding capability of America. And I don't know why I should care. What do ships even matter when it comes to global affairs and war?
Well, so this is a really, unfortunately, it's a sad story. If Americans were really tuned into this, being a naval power is still relevant in the world. Our commerce is mostly done on the ocean. And what we're seeing in the Red Sea right now is an example of why naval power and shipbuilding is actually important. It's tied into the lifeblood of our economy. So whether it's goods that come across the seas or go through the straits, Panama Canal, the Hormuz Straits, the Bab el-Mandeb, the Suez Canal, any of these goods need protection. And when you get areas like you have in the Red Sea where there's too much conflict, ships then have to either be diverted or resources get stacked up at ports, or we don't have resources. Don't forget in 2019 or 2020, was it? All of us had to scramble to find toilet paper. So that's where naval power and shipbuilding actually matter. And I'll just tell you a number for the audience here. The United States says, the Congress says, in order to compete in the globe, we should have about 360 ships. We have 290 right now. So we're far below what we said we need to do the thing that we do best in the world, which is secure global trade.
Well, at least all our ships are modern ships and more modern than other nations, correct?
Oh, you jest. We are in a bit of a tangle when it comes to modernization of our ships. We've had a difficult time. Our ships have gone through, the industry of shipbuilding itself is very difficult. So one of the reasons we should have shipbuilding is by the time you craft a warship, you have to have regular shipbuilding capability to be able to have economy of force, economy of scale. So if the labor's not there, if the steel's not there, if the type of talent's not there, practicing on merchant vessels, container ships, cargo ships, tankers, when it comes time to turn out war production, you don't have it. Joe Biden made a comment, the president, recently, that in World War II, we were able to industrialize better than anyone else and faster than anyone else. That has changed. We don't have that ability now because our shipbuilding is mostly outsourced to other nations.
Jason, can you help the normal American understand why there's so many attacks in the Red Sea on our shipping when we do have this big, powerful Navy? Everyone talks about it with all these fancy aircraft carriers and all these things. And we have a bunch of pirate dorks. The Houthis are somehow crippling shipping. How can that happen? How can a bunch of dirt-worshipping losers stop America's shipping when we have this great Navy? What are they doing?
Well, this is a fascinating story. We've seen this play before. Back in the 1980s, there was what was called the tanker war when Iran and Iraq were at war with each other, and Iran started shooting tankers with missiles, Chinese silkworm missiles, by the way. And, of course, the Iraqis responded. The United States had to go into Operation Praying Mantis, to make its statement and protect that ship, protect those ships for commerce. We're back at that same place. The Houthis, who are a non-state actor, are getting technology transfer, we believe, and this is almost obvious, from Iran. Iran is getting technology transfer from China. So what you're seeing is not necessarily the Houthi rebels taking advantage of the United States or other nations in this commerce zone, but what you're seeing are near-peer rivals like China and Iran establishing what are essentially proxy wars. They get away with it. They can create havoc. And one of the main efforts, I would suggest, is not looking at the operations themselves, a missile hitting a ship, but rather looking at the logistics, the supply chain, the economy. This is about warfare, but it's not the kind of warfare generals and soldiers 11 Bravos think about. It's the kind of warfare nation states think about. How do we control the influence of your supply chain, choke off your food? That's what I believe is at work here.
How can they choke off things like our food when we are such an agriculture nation? Does it make sense to normal people? Normal people look at, the Midwest and it's all cornfields and wheat fields. How can these people affect us?
Well, our supply chains are tied so together internationally that when you talk about things like oil pricing or commodities or goods that are shipped internationally, whether it's from exports or imports, it's all tied in together. So again, I'll take us back to the pandemic when we saw container ships stacked at ports that either had to get diverted or couldn't get their goods unloaded, couldn't get their containers onto trucks or onto rails. That meant there was a lack of supply chain in the market. So all of those things work together to either depress or make our economy prosperous. And so when you start to tweak those things, it's like a spider's web. You pull on one web of this thing, and the other things feel it. So supply chains are all tied together. So yes, we can produce food, but we rely on a lot of other things in our commodities supply chain, in our domestic goods supply chain, for the economy to have a robust health. That's why we see inflation where it is, and that's why it hurts on our wallets. So even the price of goods goes up, because think about one thing, Jesse. We might be able to manufacture or have goods somewhere, food in the Midwest, but then we have to ship them. And when your shipping is all a mess, whether the trucks aren't there, the boats aren't there, or the railways are clogged up, you still have a problem getting food and distributing it out to the communities. That's why it's all kind of linked together. China knows this. By the way, so should the United States.
Jason, why are Green Berets getting out? They're our best. I'm most definitely not one. You can speak to that. I can't, but I do have many friends who are, and they're getting out. We don't just have a recruitment problem. We have a serious retention problem. Why are they leaving?
So it's a very complex answer. I'm glad you asked it. First and foremost, a lot of us, as you pointed out at the top, we love America. We're tired of seeing the losses. I have friends that have talked to tribal chiefs and told them, looked them eye to eye and said, trust us, we're not going to leave you hanging in the lurch, only to find out 6 days later, we're going to leave you in the lurch. We watched Afghanistan, that disastrous withdrawal. We saw our blood and treasure spoiled in the deserts of Iraq, only to be handed back over to the Iranian influence who has penetrated the Iraqi government through and through, and then walks on our flag to say, hey, you don't have the right to come in here and tell us what to do. So what I think you've seen is American soldiers who love this country and those who serve this flag. Number one, we've been kicked in the gut. It's a bit of a realization when you go into the process of wanting to do the right thing, wanting to fight for your country, but then watching all of that energy become spoiled from president to president to president. This is not laid at the doorstep of one administration. This is multiple administrations and seniors in our national security establishment that do not know how to use our military effectively. So when you squander our treasure like that, and when you embarrass me by sending us into these locations without an objective so that we walk away losing, and then you do things like internal moral policies or morale policies, that really torques people off. And these are the best Americans. So I think you add a lot of that together. You get chaos, you get losses on the board. We haven't won for a while. Our industrial capacity's down. And meanwhile, they're running down the soldier. They're saying, we're the problem. Don't forget, someone stood up, I won't name the person, and said that it's American veterans coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan who are going to be our likely extremist terrorists. That's not true, but that's what they said about us. So you get all that, you add that together, and pretty soon people start looking around and go, is this really what I wanted to join for?
Friggin' sad. Jason, my brother, Semper Fi, come back soon, please.